All right, so you started a business, it didn't work out the plan, and you're giving up and you're losing motivation, right? I've been there. I'm sure everybody who's watching this probably has at some point, unless you haven't started anything, which is even worse, right? So today I'm going to be going over why 99.99% of people never commit to anything, never stay consistent, and fail, and how you can be the 0.01% that do succeed and stay consistent. And I'm going to be showing you guys how in the next 30 or so minutes, might exceed 30 minutes. I'm a yapper, so without further ado, let's hop right into the video. So this is the entrepreneurship cycle and why 99% of people aren't consistent. Now, I hear some things online and occasionally I think like this too, is that like people don't start things, but I really think that's not true. Like everybody in my mind I can think of right now at some sort of point has done something, whether minorly entrepreneurship or just something outside of the norm in some sort of fashion, right? The big difference is most people start but never finish. Most people do a very, very small amount. A big difference I can think of is, I've had friends that have started businesses and they've given it weeks, right? I've had friends that have literally given something days. I can speak about myself and say like, when I was trying to like flip sneakers because I never really could get into it, I bought like a couple pairs and literally just couldn't sell them, so I stopped. And that was the entire cycle. I went online, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, basically like, jerk off in my mind to it, right? I was like, this is gonna be sick. I'm gonna make a ton of money with shoes. Bought a bunch of shoes. I was retarded, and I just failed, right? And I didn't sell them, and I didn't even really fail. I just gave up, right, after a very short amount of time. So that's honestly the cycle that 99, I wouldn't even say 99%, 99.99% of people capture themselves in, because I've only really met a couple people in my state of Pennsylvania that have held similar beliefs, mindsets to someone that is like successful, if that makes sense. So this is why this cycle happens. Now, it starts with someone getting sick of their current state. Now, this isn't super business related, but I uh, I remember when I started a Instagram account to lose weight, right? When I was like losing weight. And that was because I was sick of my current state and I needed something to keep me consistent. I wanted to motivate people and potentially build a brand out of it, right? Even my TikTok, like I never really had aspirations of blowing up super big on it. I never really did, but I still started it just to be like, I want to show people that like I'm this cool lifter guy, and I grew up super fat, so now that I'm like lifting weights and stuff, it's super sick and everything like that. For business, it was because I was working fucking crazy hours with my dad's business. I love my dad and he has an awesome business, but it was very hard on me. And, with school too, like I hated school and I hated all these things. And so I just got absolutely fucking sick of it. Um, and so what I did, what I had was this internal drive against normancy, right? Normality, right? All my life, all I can think about is how much I hated school, how much that like when everybody did something, I always, it's such a stubborn thing, but like I always take a contrarian stance. Like if the general populace picks a certain stance on things, I will in my mind cognitively use bias to determine why it is wrong and pretty much pull every single thing up, right? How about these? I wrote an entire research paper for school on why zins are not sin and why they shouldn't be syntaxed, because my teacher was getting in college was mad at me for having them, right? And not mad at me for having them like for some like you should get in trouble. Like she was pretty cool about it, but she was just like, they're terrible for you, And I went through every single study, every single pro and con, and showed how there's no real sin in it. The sin is how you use it, right? You could sin by taking too much caffeine, right? This is pure gluttony, right? So at any rate, there's just this internal drive against being normal. Like I always hated being normal. I always stuck out. I was always this fat fucking kid. And that drove me, like, at first, all I wanted to do was be normal. But as I grew older and grew into myself, I realized, like, how much I unnaturally wanted to be, like, almost like the lone wolf, the protagonist that just, like, has no friends or something like that. And obviously I have friends and nothing like that, but I've always rebelled, I guess, in some sort of retrospects. Like, in sixth grade, I wrote a research paper on why I hate the English language system in like a CE class. It was like some sort of non like it wasn't part of the main curriculum, right? And I wrote a paper about that. That teacher snitched on me and gave it to my LA teacher who hated me and I hated her, and she sat me down and like went in on me for like hours. I mean, it was actually crazy. It was like for 2 hours. But I've always been driven to just like almost out of ego, do what I do and think I know better, and so act in ways that are against the general populace, and then try to succeed out of that. I know that's kind of like hard to be conjoined, but anyway, and it's something I notice with a lot of entrepreneurs, like all the entrepreneurs I can think of right now is, that maybe they didn't go to college or they didn't finish college or they never really liked high school and they never really fit in too much, right? It's all these same things that just drives you against like hating being normal. For me, I didn't get like raw dog bullied or anything like that, but it was hard being a fat kid, right? It was hard, with my family, and everything like that. It was hard with my friends. It was hard with everything to be a heftier kid, and obviously I had other struggles, but that's just one thing that I can think of that like I that made me so sick of being judged that all I wanted to do was get to a state where I judged other people. Hence why I chased finances and riches, and well, I still do, but hence why I was so driven to like being a rich, successful, powerful, jacked man, right? And so this led me to want to be different, right? Because I was told that I'm a different person. And so everybody in their own right, all the entrepreneurs I can think of, they're told or showed that they're different. There's something like it's so weird, but there's something so like uncannibalistically different about all the entrepreneurs I know. They all have some sort of thing that like just makes them a different person. Whether it was their background, right? And it's crazy. You know what I mean? And obviously, like the biggest thing about this is you're not different. Like you're different because society has treated you that way for the vast majority of the time, right? And so what this leads us to be, doing, I can even think of outside of a business. Like I saw this woman that started like a really body positive sort of Instagram deal, and obviously these all apply, right? They got sick of their current state. They were told that they're heavy or fat or whatever. I'm not walking on eggshells, but I also am, I don't really care. I'm not like an aggressively hateful person, right? They're internally driven, right? Because it sucks, and they're told they're different, right? They want to be different because they're told they're different, and this leads into doing something different, right? For them, they started a body positivity page. They started posting on it, right? For me, at one point, I started, lose it. My Instagram account was called like Lose It with Dom or whatever, trying to show people how to lose weight, right? My TikTok, even my Instagram account now. I was sick of seeing all these people make tons and tons of money off Instagram, and I wanted to do that. I never really have chased followers. I don't really care. I literally care to have. I give a fuck about followers, right? But I was driven because of what I didn't have, right? And because I was different in that circumstance. And so this leads to that initial high, all those for that, woman who posts her body positivity, all the fucking comments, all the rave, right? When people, and this is a little bit personal, but when people start like the lifting accounts and the fitness accounts when they just got in the gym, or, I'm not being a dick, I'm just telling you guys the truth. It's what it is, right? Or for me, like when I started, posting on that Instagram account, like I got a ton of good feedback, and people were really being nice to me, you know what I mean? And even if the feedback's bad, right? If people are being dicks to you, you feel good. It's like I'm doing something contrarian. That's how I felt anyway. Because a lot of people have been very supportive of my social media endeavors throughout my time, but that's not to say everybody has, right? And I still feed off that high a little bit. I can lie to you guys. I get a little bit of like ooh, like I'm doing something different and people don't like me, and I like when people don't like me. I like when people like me. I like it both, right? Um, and so when you start an entrepreneurship, let's just say you started a cookie business. Everybody, all your family, friends, or whatever, they're gonna come to your store, and they're gonna throw a parade, and you're gonna get a ton of sales, right? And then this leads you to associate external stimuli with your success because it's like a drug. Like I've never felt a drug as oh my god, I've never felt a drug as strong as external stimuli, like as like winning, right? As either hitting a new revenue goal or having people tell you you look good or you look fit or you look great or oh my god, you're doing that at your age, like that's crazy, like oh my god, it's like a drug, right? And this is where everybody gets addicted, and what it leads them to do along this wrong line is quit, right? Because you face challenges. Now everybody that went to the fucking cookie store or the bakery store or wherever they went, they're gone. You were the news of yesterday. You had your 15 minutes of fame. Everybody diligently supported you for the beginning. And now maybe one or two customer comes in and out, and you're sitting there with your head on your paw, your head on your fist, just thinking, when's the next customer coming through, right? You take your bakery hat off, and you just put it down, and you just kind of contemplate, right? For me, it was like after I lose it, after I stopped getting comments and people swiping up and like really hyping me up for losing weight, which those people were amazing for, and I really am thankful for that. But after everybody stopped, it was like that rush was gone, and now it's just me posting about my weight loss. And so, even in business, let's just say it's not externally, right? In business, like there was times that I never wanted to quit business, right? I never had that thought in my mind. Once I started, I knew this was my ticket out, so to speak. But there was times where it's like you face so many fucking challenges, even with losing weight, with doing business, with doing anything that takes effort. There's so many challenges involved, and these challenges, if they can't be overcome by your mind, then that's when someone gives up. Right? For example, we go back to the shoe analogy. When I bought a bunch of shoes, thought I was going to be the reselling goat, thought I was going to be the new freelance brand scaler of America, and I just ended up wasting money. Well, in all actuality, did I end up wasting money? No, because I learned a lesson. I learned that next time I got to do X, Y, Z. But my brain had thought I had failed because there was no external stimuli. There was no money made. There was no profit, right? Um, and I did stocks and trading. When I would lose money, my brain would feel like I was losing, but in all actuality, I was taking decent trades. It really wasn't, anything crazy bad. But because I wasn't getting immediate success or gratification, I had thought I was losing. So then I was like, well, I'm not that good at this. And then I hit a huge trade on Palantir, and I thought I was fucking Wolf of Wall Street, right? I got that high, that rush, right? And so when you're going to do anything entrepreneur like or anything business like or anything that's just out of the norm, it could be posting on social media, starting a brand, whatever you want to do, right? There's challenges that come across, and this is where most people stop, right? Because you begin lacking motivation, dude. You know how hard it is when, like, for example, I can think of a time where like I started like my weight loss rapidly sped up at a point when I was losing weight. And it was literally because like I kind of got rejected by a girl. Not kind of. I got rejected by a girl, right? It's very simple, but my weight loss like accelerated, dude. And when I kind of realized that I didn't really have that much feelings for, her and whatnot, and there was time in between, I just lacked all the motivation in the world. You know what I mean? When that fucking bakery guy comes in and, everybody in the town's talking his name, and then 15 minutes later no one's there, right? No wonder that you begin to lack motivation. Content creators face it all the time. They stop getting views as much, and they just dissipate off the face of the earth because they're not hitting these $1 million views anymore. And now, because of that reason, you start having a lack of drive, right? You lack motivation and you lack drive. You don't even feel that high of like being abnormal. Being abnormal just means you fucking, you know, commit time every single day for nothing, right? Like for example, when I was starting my, building my business, there was points where I lacked drive because I was doing fucking cold calls for like $30 websites. I was cooked, dude. And so I would lack all this drive and be like, why the fuck am I doing this? You know what I mean? And so that's where most people start giving up and the stagnation and ceasing of operations starts, right? Going back to that girl I was talking about, she stopped posting on her Instagram as soon as people, I literally saw the comments. I actually saw this. The comments started dwindling. Her posts started getting more infrequent. Once the comments were pretty much done, she literally stopped posting. Like I think the last time she posted was last year, right? And so that's the cycle that 99% of people, because now they're stagnated, now they're in this position, right? So many fitness influencers I followed have stopped posting because they don't have that external drive of all these people commenting, right? Or in business, let's just say like you go through a hard time. And like, for me, for example, like it took me a while to get to 10K per month. Like there was points where literally I was ceasing operations. Like I was just like, damn, I'm done with this. Like, let me take a day or something like that. Like I lacked that drive. So things stalled. When you don't have drive for something, we don't believe you can do it, things stall, right? And so what happens is you almost return to normalcy, right? Like there was a time where after my girlfriend broke up with me and after I was really, not working with my dad as much because I was in all my business and, after all these things, I started to like at night, like subtly crave that, like subtly crave just waking up and going to work and, have my ex-girlfriend, just being able to be like very comfortable and very calm and all that stuff, all that good jazz. And, just being able to like wake up super late and all that. And I started craving that. But the reality is that it was almost just because my drive was getting fucked and I was stagnating, right? Because of I hit 10K per month. I thought I was king of the world, and then the next month it was, oh well, you hit 10K in 2 weeks, and well, this doesn't really feel that fun, right? Like I listen, I'm progressing, but it's like I'm progressing, and I feel that high, I feel that rush for like, oh dude, when those 2 weeks were over, and I hit about 11 or 12 grand in 2 weeks, I was pumped, right? But literally I was pumped for a day. I was pumped for a day, right? And when there's no one telling you that you should keep going and whatnot, you feel like this subtle like drive for comfort, you know? Um, and you experience, you come back to it, right? And for me, like, I never really returned to, I would say, comfort, but um when I was still going to school and like sitting in the classroom, like knowing my business could take off at any moment, that was the real pain, right? Or for many, I think that like this one's hard for me because in business, I never really returned, like I never really gave up on business. And I never will. So I can't really talk about that. But I mean, that's why 99% of people, they do give up on business, right? And they return to being normal people, working their jobs, going to school, right? Not posting whatever, doing all this shit. And then you realize that, like, wow, I don't like being where I'm at. And it's almost like this entire time I hated being normal because I was told I was different. And this is where this loop, you get sick of the current state and now you have this drive and you want to be a different person. So you start that business up. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm going to give that business another shot. Or oh, I'm going to give that Instagram page another shot. Oh, now you start posting, right? And now these challenges, right? And now you begin lacking motivation because people aren't commenting again. And it's this cycle. And so how do we, as entrepreneurs, as people doing things outside of the norm, how do we stop this cycle? I'm going to have you guys take a second, pause the video or not, and tell me, where does this cycle, where does it all go wrong? I know you didn't pause the video, so I'll just tell you. Here. Here's where the cycle goes wrong. And so if we want to begin to be consistent, if we don't want to lack drive and lack motivation and all that, right? You're going to have to face challenges, and there's going to be times you're a little bit less motivated and, less driven, right? These are all true. There's going to be times of stagnation, and there's going to be times where maybe you take a week off and you just be a normal person again, right? You're always going to be sick of your current state if you're in it, right? There's going to be time, you're always going to be driven towards being different, being, not normal. But the biggest thing is you don't have to do this. This is the only thing you really, really, really don't have to do, right? This is the only thing that kind of just chain reacts and changes the entire picture. Because if you associate external stimuli with success, and now if we change that right here, if we change this to internal, make sure my mouse doesn't fall apart. What happens now? What happens now? So now let's say we're driven by internal stimuli. What happens? So these challenges, they still happen. And you still do lose that external stimuli because you can't, it's just how it is. I saw a post by AJ Brown. He said, I won the Super Bowl. I was super hype. And that lasted for 2 days, right? This is always a constant. These things are constants, right? But do you begin lacking motivation? Why would you begin lacking motivation in this context? Just think about it. What would cause you to lack motivation? It's one of two things: the challenges you face in your business, in your social media ventures, whatever you're doing, whatever endeavor you're doing, right? Football, sports, or you're not getting validated by external. But if I don't care about external circumstances and I'm internally driven, well, I'm internally driven because of the man I'm becoming. And that's the big switch, right? When you love lifting weights because it's fucking hard, when you love, you know, when you're the man who loves walking more than you love the destination, you walk farther, right? And that simple switch, challenges, obstacles in my life, I enjoy them because I know and I trust myself to be the guy who will conquer them, right? I think of, like, I love telling people about all the hard things I've done. It's like my bullet points. My bullet points isn't, oh, I made this amount in a month and oh, I do this, right? Oh, I bench this. And although all this stuff's cool, I'm not gonna lie to you, like I like being that, right? I much more love like the work, the drive, the everything it takes to be a strong guy, everything it takes to be a rich guy. That's something that as I've grown older and started realizing, like, that's what I love. So I never really, if I lack motivation, man, I take a day to myself. I realize how much I fucking hate being normal, and like I miss it. It's like a drug. I want that fucking drive again. I want to be working, right? I want to be doing something. And that lack of drive never really ceases because I'm not driven by the cars and the clothes and the women and any of that. I'm driven by becoming the guy who can have all that stuff, right? Marcus Aurelius is a great example. You're the fucking emperor. You have everything you want. And what does that guy do? He internally validates himself. He could have any woman, any amount of money, whatever. He's the fucking king. He's everything like that. And none of that is attractive to him, right? And so when I think in my head who will live and die a good life, it's probably someone who doesn't care what other people think, right? So I won't lack motivation as much, and therefore drive will be consistent, right? There will, there still be stagnations, but through the stagnation, it won't be a cease of operation. I won't stop. It'll just be slight stagnation, right? I won't return. None of this happens, right? None of this happens. Now we're in a whole entirely new loop, right? Now this is where it ends because this is what it would look like. Boom. None of this ever happens. None of this ever happens. This is scratch, and now we start anew, right? And I'm gonna leave you guys up to what you think would be the new. It would be progress, right? You could probably find a graph online, but explaining more on this topic, I'm gonna give you guys examples and kind of explain like internal versus external stimuli, right? If you study because you love learning, why would you stop? Because you would fall out of love with learning? I mean, if you love it, you don't really stop loving things. It's just kind of not how it works. You stop liking things, but love's a very powerful word, right? Dude, I used to love football, but I still do. Like I would if anybody wanted to play outside, I would, right? Obviously, the thing is I just love business more, right? I used to love video games. Dude, I would still hop on a video game any given day. I still love them, right? But I just love business more. I love the gym more, right? And it's because I do business to become a certain type of man. I do the gym to become a certain type of man. And for the vast majority, it wasn't like that. What I realized is if you want to achieve success, you have to disassociate from success, right? If you want to study, you know, I actually think of this really good example is my senior year of high school. All my high school year, my high school years, all my friends, like, because I was a decently smart kid, so I was in some of the smart classes. I shared a room with a smart guy or two, and they would all talk about how many A's they got and how they distinguished, and oh my God, oh God forbid I got a B, right? And for me, I never really found that stuff that attractive. I really didn't like learning that much. I didn't really like any of that shit, and I didn't really care to get a good grade, right? And even when I did, when I was just like, I need to get good grades, I never really did, to be honest. Like I would get, my GPA was like a 3.4 right at the end of high school. It was okay because I didn't, I was driven externally enough to not be stupid with my GPA, but I wasn't driven externally enough to like have a really high one because I knew I was smart, right? And I didn't associate having a high GPA with any sort of success. I was never really driven to have a high GPA, right? So thus, I didn't really get good grades, if that makes sense. The only time I did it was actually the third quarter, the third marking period, because there was four marking periods in my school. Um, it was the third marking period of senior year, and it was the hardest classes I had taken because at the beginning of the year I was like, dude, I've always kind of dicked my classes because I never really wanted to take smart classes. I've never really driven to get good grades or try that hard. Like this year, I just want to prove to myself that if I really gave my effort all my life, like if I gave the effort the previous 3 years, I could have been a fucking demon at this shit. Lo and behold, I'm not being egotistical. I'm just telling you how it is. Like the year I took the most APs, the hardest classes, and all that. My third market period, I was like, let me lock in. Like, let me do this to prove this to myself because it was like after football dead and everything like that. And I got all A's. Right, it was the first time and only time in my entire high school career I got distinguished honor roll. Right, and it was because I wanted to prove to myself that I could. It wasn't for anybody else. It wasn't for my parents. It wasn't for college because I had already really known where I was going. It was just for myself. And that self drive for my internal validation led me to the best results I'd ever gotten, right? In business too, right? In going from a guy who makes 10K a month to making 30K a month, the only switch that I really made was just being more internally driven, right? Or, not caring, right? There was honestly a good amount of time where I struggled and I took sales calls and I couldn't close. And that led me to delaying the time of hitting 10K per month because I was doing it to, oh, dude, I'm going to do this because fuck my ex girlfriend and fuck all those kids who made fun of me and fuck all this. And that led me nowhere. It really didn't because, it's not going to keep you in the game for that long, you know? There was times where I used to work out because I got rejected by girls, and then I'd stop, right? It's not going to keep you in the game that long, right? Working out for others is not going to keep you in the game long. Working out because it makes you feel good, because you love the challenge and everything like that, you're going to work out much more, right? I love working out. I love the challenge of it, so I'll never stop, right? Helping someone because it feels right versus helping someone for praise, right? That's another example. Starting a business to fulfill a passion, to become the guy to fulfill those challenges, right? If you start a business to get rich, you are fucked. You're inherently fucked, um, right? And to get famous or something like that, you're fucked, because guess what happens? You're gonna make $0. You're gonna go negative. You're gonna have fucking stress in over your head. You're gonna have a ton of clients that you like, maybe or maybe cannot fulfill, right? And it's gonna be fucking stressful. And then you have a ton of clients that you can fulfill, you're doing really good work for, and now you have to hire employees and make sure they can do the same fucking thing. And when they don't, it's back on you. And now, you think there's this dream of hiring all these employees and going fucking passive with your income in the 4-hour work week. And then you're on the beach for about 2.5 hours. You get fucking 7 phone calls, right? It's not how it works, guys. You can't start a business to get rich and get famous and have all these nice luxuries and not work as hard and dick around and work 2 hours a day. It's just not how it is, right? Mark Scales Brands, really good YouTuber out there. He makes a video and it's like, this is my work, my day, right? Average entrepreneur day, the dream entrepreneur day is like you work for a couple hours, yada yada yada. You drive your nice car, the Ashton Hall, right? You fucking get limousined everywhere and you eat these super nice dinners and exotic things, and you have whatever you want. But guys, that's hedonism, as he says, right, in the video. It's hedonism, right? It's indulging in something that is limitless. Money is limitless. Women are limitless, right? You can't have enough money. You can't have enough women, but you can be driven enough to know, like, in my mind today, I know I can work 10 hours and feel really good, right? I can, make this YouTube video a fucking super sauce video, and I'll feel really good because it was hard. It took challenge to actually think of these. And I'm actually helping people, not to get praise, not to get recognition, because I once was a person who struggled with this. So if I help you guys, then I'll feel better about myself because I'm helping my previous self, right? Everything's an extension of yourself. And the reason I do business is because I want to make myself better, right? And eventually help others to be better, right? That's why I'm doing a mentorship. It's in my bio. It's free. Right? I'm not even fucking selling anything. I sell all day. I don't want to sell anymore. I like YouTube videos. I like, coaching people for fun. It's honestly a passion of mine, right? And even practicing guitar. I just put that there. I've never fucking done guitar. Honestly, I'm gonna be really, really brutally honest with you guys. I used AI for this portion of the video, so I don't really fucking. I just put examples up so you guys would understand it, right? But practicing because it's fun versus to win a competition, right? If you don't win that competition, you're gonna fucking quit. You know what I mean? So we have to be internally driven. And when we're internally driven, the challenges are fun. You honestly get more motivated. And let's just say you get a little burnt out, man. Take a day, right? It's nothing crazy. You don't really lack drive. And if you do, it's going to come back to you. And stagnation, it's a thing, right? Because, you'll hit your 50K month and then you're done. You're there for a couple months. Then you're at 100K. And, eventually you stop growing for a second, right? But this is all gone. And there's a whole new pattern now. It's not a cycle. You've broken the cycle, right? Now you start growing more and then doing this and then this. And, everything becomes just a better thing, right? Now we're going off and we're creating new things and we're building better things. So this is how to get out of that cycle. And I also have some bonuses here, to be honest with you guys, just to stay motivated, because I hate this connotation that like, motivation is nothing, discipline's everything. Guys, your discipline is like, people are like, discipline's a molded thing. Dude, I don't feel motivated to go to the gym. I just love it, right? It's something I do, but sometimes my discipline is just like, I'm going to eat a little bit more, right? Discipline is not something that it's constant, it's ever going, right? It's just not true, in my opinion. Harsh take there, but you have to be motivated, right? Because motivated is deeply related to drive, right? So that's a big thing to me, is like people saying you don't need motivation. I don't agree, because you do. Because like I feel motivated to make these videos because I know I'll get more coaching clients. I know I have fun doing coaching, so I want to do this, right? I don't want to be famous. I'm not motivated to be famous, but I have my own motivations. I have my own drives, right? I'm doing this video because I want to get coaching clients and I want to eventually get more, and that does make me money, and it is a passion of mine, and it's super fun. And so once I have that, I'll be super happy and whatnot. And that's my drive, is like I can, have the life I want to have. That's my drive. And I have the life I want my family to have, right? And support them, right? So the biggest ways to stay motivated is have some sort of pressure. Now, there's many ways we can talk about this. Having some sort of deadline is not a good way, in my opinion, but maybe having some economic pressure, right? If you just bought a new car because you made 30K in a month, well, now you're going to have to go out and make more money, right? That's a pretty good way. Not super recommended, right? But have pressure on yourself, internally drive yourself. Imagine retiring your mother early. Like every man, right, watching this video should have a desire, a huge desire to retire their mom, right? To make sure that they never work again, or if they do, it's because their choice, not because of financial necessity, right? Have pressure, put yourself around a group of young men who are fucking killing it. I know a friend, shout out Grady, he's making $100,000 a month and he's younger than me. Are you fucking serious? You think I don't have pressure, right? I remember we were at a dinner and we made a video on my business partner's GoPro shouting our goals, right? Every single goal we had, and we were going to achieve it, right? That's pressure, because now when I go back to those guys, I don't want to be the fucking one that didn't achieve his goals. Absolutely fucking not. Maybe a little bit of external shit there, yada, 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 but also internally, I want to achieve my goals. All right. The second thing, very controversial, most controversial thing I'll put in a video right now is stimulants and nootropics. Now, before this video, I drank a coffee. I'm finishing a Monster. I took some of these mind pills, right, nootropics, and although not today I had them, the last time I recorded a YouTube video, I was off a Zyn. All right? And so now, here's the thing. Let me break down my normal day for you guys if I don't use stimulants. Now, I remember there was about a week or two at a time in January where I wasn't using stimulants at all because I was very sick, and I knew that if I took stimulants, it'd keep me getting sicker and whatnot, what have you. And so I didn't. And plus, I just wanted to prove to myself that I could, right? That I was not reliant on caffeine, nicotine, anything like that. And so, like, I would work 12 hours, let's say once or twice a week, and then, like, my brain was shot. And then, like, every other day I'd work, like, 8, maybe. And, like, I noticed that I'd get tired a lot quicker. I'd be a little bit more fatigued. And even as the time goes on, like, the most I ever got to is, like, I think the last week, like, I drank caffeine on, like, a Saturday lift. So Monday through Friday, I worked, like, 55 hours, and it was pretty decent work. But, like, it wasn't the best thing ever. Now, when I take stimulants, like, I've taken stimulants, not much more than caffeine and nicotine, to be honest with you guys. So maybe that's a little bit too much. And other nootropics, right? I've taken those, and, like, I've worked 18-hour days. I've woken up at 5 a.m. and pretty much worked till whenever, right? No breaks. And if there's a break, it's literally to eat or take a nap because I'm so dead tired, right? A good example is the day before I went to Ocean City, Maryland for a trip. I had so much stuff to get done with my business. I had a ton of meetings. I had all this. I was packed. I wanted to do all the social media for my clients. And so I ended up working like 18 hours and just like was ripped off coffee all day and like ripped, like so much so that like after that, I just remember how depleted my dopamine. All right, this is an extremely crazy thing to put in a YouTube video, but my dopamine receptors were so fucking cooked that all I did was like play video games and, choke the chicken, let's just say, for hours and hours after that while I was packing my suitcase, like multitasking that, all three of those things, pack my suitcase to get ready, video games, the Johnson, right, all of that, before I eventually went off to Ocean City, Maryland, because my brain was like fucked after it. So you have to be careful with stimulants, but again, it's very powerful. Like there was times where I was working 70, 80-hour weeks. Guys, that was not fucking raw dogging it. I had multiple amounts of caffeine. I wasn't really too into nicotine until more recently in my life, so I can't really say that, but times when I would work with my dad's business and grow this business and be all, going to the gym and going crazy in there and going to school and having a girlfriend. Guys, caffeine was my wonder drug. Honestly was. So it helps you be motivated. There was many times where I was off of such low sleep. A quick Zyn would help me a lot, right? Even banging out like all those contents, like when I record my shorts, I'm not really much of a guy that like likes recording things. It's just not my biggest awesomest thing. So I use my dopamine receptors to my advantage, right? Because I know I don't like doing it, but my dopamine receptors, they like Zyn because dopamine happy, yada, yada, yada. And so I put a Zyn in and I can record 12 shorts, right? And now the biggest thing you have to be careful with is that could lead to a cycle of addiction. So what I personally do is I mathematically and strategically set out, with a plan of stimulant use, right? For example, let's just take a quarter. Let's say take a quarter business. Week 1, I will do no stimulants at all. It's the roughest week, honestly, of everything. Week 2, I will do no stimulants again or little bit of coffee, right? Week 3, same thing. Week 4, I might start introducing a little bit of nicotine, right? Upping the caffeine, right? Weeks 5 through 8, same thing. Week around 8 or 9, I have some sort of break, like a couple days off, just, get my receptors back. And then weeks 9 through 12, I'll just push as hard as I can. I'll drink as much coffee as I want. I won't limit myself. I'll take as much nicotine as I want. I won't limit myself. Take any stimulant I want. I won't limit myself. And then by the end of that, my brain's usually fried. And like, if I take a day off stimulants, I can't do anything, right? A good example of that is like the week after my partner left. Like we were gonna shut our ads off, and the week after my partner left, like that whole week where I had to continue working, I was so lazy without stimulants that like I literally drank 4 cups of coffee in my bed. This is a very embarrassing tale to tell, but like I had my mom bring me coffee, and then went and made my coffee and bring it back to bed and watched YouTube, and then I got to work after the 4th. So obviously you don't want to be in that position, right? So just be very careful and learn to like structure it. I structure it. And again, like with nicotine, be more careful than caffeine. It's much more addictive. So I'm able to just, keep it to a minimum. I know 90% of people won't, but that's what separates me, right? And the last thing I'll make, because this video is already way too long, is learn to earn, right? And what I mean by that is when you face challenges and when you fail, quote unquote, because I don't really believe in failure, when you don't succeed immediately, it is actually teaching you how to succeed at a later point, right? If you have the patience, if you have the belief in yourself, you will eventually earn if you learn, if you take the failure, if you take those steps. And just having that simple mindset switch, I mean, I talked all day about the stimulants, so I'll be pretty quick with this one. If you learn that learning is the way, if you learn that facing challenges makes you stronger, makes you better, means you can actually make more money, then you won't really be demotivated by facing a lot of challenges. You'll actually crave them. In some retrospects, I crave challenge. I crave a hard fought battle, a grind. I crave that. So, and that's because my brain is attached that to earning more money, to being more successful, having more freedom in my life, right? Because to be truly free, you have to be free of wanting anything, if that makes sense. And so that's really the video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. Hope you found sauce. Now, if you get stuck with the challenge of running an agency, trust me, I've been there. Right now, I'm doing a free mentorship. It is completely free. If you like it and you want to join, go high level affiliate. Very simple. You need the software anyway, so you might as well fucking do it. Preferably someone who's actually tried and isn't just like a entrepreneur and like maybe wants to start something. But if you are, you're gonna have to prove to me why. I really want to work with people who are driven for success and already have tried something or are giving effort. Just the thing they need is like, how do I sell? How do I market? How do I deliver on my service? And those things I can help with. So it's in my link. Just DM me. It's Dom Closes, DOMCLOSES on Instagram. And I don't have anything else for you guys. Hope this video was valuable for you. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.